Welcome back to Suburban Betty, a lifestyle channel about cooking, cleaning, cosmetics and more. In today's video I'm going to be making this beautiful festive season wreath. To make this wreath I used an indigenous floral arrangement from a retailer that we have in South Africa. And the beautiful thing about using indigenous flowers in South Africa, or more particularly fynbos, is that it dries down really beautifully. So even though this is a fresh floral arrangement, that's kind of a mouthful, this is going to dry down really beautifully, and so towards the end of the season it's still going to look really lovely and elegant. So if you're interested in making something like this, please follow along for the tutorial. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more content like this, please give my channel a like and consider subscribing. You're going to need a festive bouquet. This is one from Woolworths. Then you're going to need some gardening shears to clip the branches to size. Then some bonding wire. I have 2mm wire here. Then some craft wire or just some thinner wire that you can mold. A pair of scissors. Some beautiful fabric ribbon. And a glue gun. And then some pointed pliers. So this is what I'm trying to create. It's a wreath form. These are available in the US and in other countries, but I could not find one in South Africa, so I just decided I'm going to try my hand at making one. So that's what we're going to try and make now. So it's two large circles, one that fits inside the other, and then it's connected by some sort of like stability struts in between. So I'm going to start off by cutting the wire for my first outer circle. So just grab what you think will be close to enough wire. You can choose the size that you want. I went for about probably 40 centimeters across, as you can see here, and then I just recut my wire once I was happy with the size of the circle. And then I'm just going to join it together by twisting the wire around sort of, or the two end pieces around each other, like you can see. And this process is quite quick. All I would say is that make sure that you have two just sort of loose ends. You can see there I sort of was trying to do some kind of clip thing where the wire had been twisted at the end. Needless to say, just cut it off. Alright, so I've got my outside circle now, and I'm going to cut wire for the inside circle. So again, you just want to, guesstimate the length of an inside circle. Again, you're going to go and cut it, and then we're going to repeat that process of winding the ends around each other to create a stable circle, but just measure it out inside the larger circle just to make sure that it is adequately small enough to fit once you've wound the edges around. Okay, so I've heated up my glue gun, and now I'm just putting a blob of glue on all of the pointy bits that are left behind, just so that if I do sort of scratch up against them while I'm making the wreath, I'm not going to get sort of cut or scratched. And then I go along each of those areas that I've joined by twisting, and I just put some glue over them to ensure that they were nice and stable and that the wreath wasn't going to come apart. Then I cut 4 pieces of wire, probably between 10 and 15 centimeters each, and I'm going to use that craft thinner wire to create the stability struts. And I'm doing that by placing the craft wire underneath both of the binding wire circles, and then I take the ends and I put them under the opposite piece of binding wire and over, etc., until the ends of the craft wire are too short to continue doing so. Then pinch them in the middle and use your pliers to wrap those ends around the middle section, and that basically creates your strut. I'll show you a close-up of what it looks like, but if you imagine like a ball of yarn or string or wool, it looks like that. So you've wound it over each side, so you have the wire looped around each side of the binding wire, and then you tie it off in the middle. and then just use the pliers to flatten down the edges of the craft wire so there isn't anything sharp. And yeah, that's a close-up. I did this 4 times, and then I used the glue gun to glue the top and bottom of the strut quite firmly to the binding wire, and that way those little struts aren't sort of just running around and all gathering up in one place. Next up, I went through the arrangement, and what I wanted to do was pick every piece of foliage that didn't have a lot of leaves running down the entire piece, because I want to start off by attaching those. So you can see here with these cones, they just basically attached to a stick, and there's no foliage. And I want to attach these first because you know, you're going to be able to see the wire if you attach them later on. So if you start attaching these bits first, then you're basically going to be able to cover them up with foliage later on, or with, you know, with leaves, so you don't see the wire. And just before I put these on, I just bent them a little bit so that they'd fit the form a little bit better. And then some advice from someone who learned this the hard way. Start off by pre-cutting a bunch of lengths of your craft wire. That's going to make the process much easier. I cut every time I used, and looking back on it, I should have just spent like 5 minutes cutting a bunch of lengths. I would say you need a bunch of about 10 centimeters long, and then a bunch of about 20. So like this, for example, needed a slightly longer piece of wire, but in general, I used probably pieces between 10 and 15 centimeters max in length. So yeah, start off with the pieces from the arrangement that don't have a lot of foliage on them, and pre-cut yourself some craft wire. So again, you can see I'm picking a stem that doesn't have a lot of leaves along the bottom of it, just so that I can, you know, put those on first and then cover them up with ones that have more leaves. But you will see that I struggled there to actually trim that stem. So instead of, you know, having a sharp blade with you, I highly recommend some garden shears. That would have made the process so much easier for me. And then basically what I'm doing here is just sort of playing around with, you know, what it might look like. With each piece that I put on, I just try a couple of different arrangements where I would put it, and how I would want it set out. And then when I find one that I like, I put it together. I did learn from this though that, you know, maybe just start off doing one piece at a time. So you can see here I'm attaching 2. It's actually easier to just do it one piece at a time. You know, you can do 2 if you want, but yeah, my recommendation would be find a nice spot that you're happy with, attach a piece, etc. Carry on. Another piece of advice that I can give you is that my wire cutters on my pliers required quite a lot of sort of strength to actually make the wire cut properly, and I would strongly recommend using scissors. I don't know if it's very good for the pair of scissors to do that, but strangely the scissors cut that craft wire a hell of a lot better than the pliers did, or the wire cutter part of the pliers did. So yeah, go for the scissors.
Hey darling, can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city life. Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now.
Another great reason to attach stems from the arrangement that don't have a lot of leaves along the bottom half is that you're going to have to move leaves out the way to actually attach if you do a mix between, you know, quite foliage heavy stems and then stems that don't have any foliage. So you'll see here I'm having to move the leaves out of the way to actually bind the stem down to the binding wire or to the wreath frame. So yeah, it just makes it easier if you focus on the more woody pieces first, and then you actually attach the more leafy pieces.
on now and take my hand. Hey, darling.
So you'll see now that I'm starting to attach stems that have quite a lot of foliage or like leafy bits on them, and this is when you can start positioning pieces that cover up the wire. So I was able to use that leaf there to cover up the wire that I'd used to attach that cone, and this is when it starts looking nice and it doesn't just like look like a weird sort of, you know, bunch of twigs wired onto a frame. So in the beginning it's going to look you know, less than ideal, but as you start to attach bits with, you know, lots of foliage and leaves, it does start looking better. And just position those more leafy stems in areas where you can visibly see wire, and you know, I would say try and make a strategic choice about where you put the bulk of the foliage.
We can look back someday. Baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey. Come on now and take my hand. Get out, we can leave this city. Let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the country.
So you'll see that you can start actually just slotting things in once you've attached quite a few things already to the frame, and they will almost hold in by themselves without being attached by wire. It's probably still a good idea, and I did do this, to just still use some wire to attach these pieces. As things dry, they can shrink a little bit, and you don't want random bits just falling out the wreath when it's hung up. So yeah, I recommend still attaching these pieces that you've sort of slotted in or woven in with at least one small piece of craft wire. Another hint is when it starts getting built up to this level, it's really good to turn the wreath around and then work on the back of the wreath. This way you can focus making sure that the wire is wrapping mainly around the back, and that you're trying to sort of almost weave that wire underneath the foliage on the back side, and then you won't see it as much on the front side.
Can promise Santa's coming to visit. No, he wouldn't miss this in Christmas times. Oh, and the sunset is just getting better on a blanket with the skyline painted in blue. Ooh, yeah, that's what we do. Doesn't matter if the snow is falling or the windows in the rain is pouring. It will always be Christmas in my heart. But this year
Okay, so you can see that I'm also using the pliers to make sure that the wires are holding each piece or each stem quite close to the frame or whatever it is that I'm attaching that stem to, and they're really useful for this. I don't think that you can get the craft wire around, or I couldn't at least get it around the frame as tightly without the use of pliers. They're also really useful for sort of sealing or closing up the wire. So you can see there I just twist it around itself. So yeah, those pointed nose pliers were invaluable for me finishing up this project.
Give me love, give me all your love, oh, 'cause I want you. No one else makes me feel this way, don't know what you do. Hold my hand, could you hold my hand, look me in the eyes. You and me, yeah, that's all I need, and I'll be alright. I'll be right.
The This project is also a perfect excuse to look through your old Christmas decorations, because you could definitely add in baubles or bells, or any sort of small decoration that might fit onto this. You'll see that just now I'm going to add in some cones, and just like you add those in, you could string on a bauble or you could string on a nice bell. So if you do have quite a few Christmas decorations hanging around, go through them, find some that you think would fit nicely, and definitely include them.
Promise you won't leave my side. I hope who I am is enough for you. If I'm giving you my love, giving you my love, love. Tell me what
So the last bit of the arrangement that I'm going to attach is these really pretty gold cones, and I'm just doing it the exact same way that I did with all the others, but you obviously want to do this right at the end. So if you are going to attach cones, or you're going to attach something that's, you know, like a big sort of centerpiece of the wreath, then I would say leave it till the end, because that allows you to sort of, you know, work around with the placement a little bit and figure out how you want sort of the end look to be. And you can also use these cones to sort of cover up any areas that still might be showing wire, which is what I use them for. If you'd like to see any more decorations similar to this, maybe a little wreath for the table, please let me know in the comments down below. I love hearing from you, and I'd love to make some more decorations. And then for the final flourish, I take the ribbon and I just make 2 bunny ears, cross one under the other into a simple bow, and then you just fiddle around with it to get it to the size and sort of shape that you want. And then I'm going to use my glue gun and just attach it at the top. So I purposely didn't put too much foliage or stems at the top, so that there would just be a nice space of wire for me to stick it onto. And I plopped it on there, and then the wreath is pretty much ready to hang. And this is the final product. I really like it. It does definitely look rustic, but I really like that look, and I just love that it's got sort of indigenous plants on it. And yeah, I really hope that you like it too. Here's a close-up with the bow. I really enjoyed this. It did take a while, but it was super fun, and I hope it's something that you think is worth giving a try. I really hope that you enjoyed that video, and I hope that you were inspired to make some festive wreaths of your own, or at least some festive decorations of your own. And if you did enjoy this, please give the video a like. Please leave a comment down below if you have any ideas of your own for festive decorations. And I would also really appreciate if you consider subscribing. Have a lovely, safe festive season.